I'm curious if you guys use any agentic AI.
I do, but still slightly, because actually, and thankfully, a good deal of my work at this moment is just talk to people.
I understand there is a bit of an outflow from people wanting to pursue computer science degrees.
2026, 2027, we'll have the first big companies that have embraced AI in the bad way.
Regulations in general are a good thing.
Near impossible to regulate something you don't know what it is yet.
We cannot naively expect that all of a sudden we will all become more productive, but everything will remain the same.
The Recursive Roundtable. 3 voices, 1 idea to decode the future.
Yeah, it's. I've been personally using AI to generate some storytelling to read stories with 11 Labs and stuff like that, together with my husband. And we're planning, because my kid really enjoys being the character in a story. So we're planning to use AI to generate a story where he's the main character and stuff happens around him. We've actually been using it a lot around the holidays for some gifts with these, what was it called? The Google's storybook tool. I don't know if you've tried it. It's really cool. You can give it a prompt, which is not even that detailed, and then it generates a whole kind of picture book for you. It's really good because it makes everyone look super fit and really good looking. So that was a hit over the holidays.
Thank you for joining our improvised roundtable. Today we will discuss AI and if history is repeating itself. If we make the resemblance back to the dot-com bubble in the 90s, in the late 90s, when the capital was pouring into internet companies and then everything flopped. Last year, over 50% of the venture capital investments went into AI companies. So my first question would be, is history really repeating itself, or we are witnessing something else?
I think in many ways it is repeating, and that's because fundamentally it's all rooted in human psychology. When you have a transformational technological invention, everybody starts dreaming how this will change everything, how the risk-reward equilibrium is shifting, and with little capital you can become overnight a unicorn, a millionaire, etc. So this is all natural. And I think we should be aware, but not in any way negate or be afraid of it. Now, the question is, what are the positives, I guess, and the negatives of this really human nature that we're seeing in motion here? And I think in many ways, those phases of excitement fundamentally are good, because they sort of wake up everybody, not just businesses, but individuals, to really rethink what we're doing, how we're doing, whether we can, use AI to read stories to our kids, or whether we should, put away cookbooks aside and try to, make a nice meal in a different way. It also pushes businesses to rethink, processes, fundamental economics, workflows, value chains. Now the question is how quickly, the reality will actually come into place, and this is, I guess, the big question here. But fundamentally, I think it's good. I think it puts like a watershed of before and after. We just need to be careful how to navigate this new reality, because it's here, and again, it's human nature.
Oh, I wasn't necessarily very aware of public markets back in the dot-com bubble era. We're certainly seeing some similarities, like the disproportionate investment, before we're actually seeing the value output to match that investment. But what I'm seeing is also a very quick shift towards looking for value. So like a couple of years ago, public markets tended to reward investment and capacity building, whereas now, and this, optimism and focus on this is going to change everything, we need to act now, and the FOMO and everything. And now what we're seeing lately is essentially public markets and investors looking for the actual output. So I think that's going to balance things out. It happened in the space of a couple of years. So we'll see. But yeah, it's certainly. I mean, it's here to stay, just like the internet was, right? So, from that respect, there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the value of it, regardless if it's a bubble or not, is undeniable. The question is like, who is going to survive, and when are we going to see the actual value instead of the overhyped thing that we currently have?
And do we already see an actual value? How do we assess that?
Well, in software engineering, we see it for sure. Some people are reporting it as well across business domains. I think what we also haven't yet realized is like how we make AI useful across a given department or an organization, because right now I see most people just use it to become individually more productive. But I believe like in the long term, we'll see a lot of value in making whole departments, teams more productive, and utilizing AI across all the value chain.
Yeah, typically this spot on. This is typically the challenge, because it's quite easy to sort of introduce a new tool to a person individually. But when you have to sort of adapt, change, or evolve, or completely scrap a workflow that touches multiple people, multiple teams, or the whole company, that is actually very complex. And this is the reason why many of the initial sort of AI pilots that we're seeing in enterprises remain just that, pilots, because they're very cool and excitement in terms of a demo. But then when you actually have to face, the different complexities of organizations, workflows, etc., regulations, it's actually really hard to transition this from a demo to reality. It will take time. I mean, ultimately it will happen because, again, undeniably, there's a lot of productivity to be unlocked, a lot of usefulness in AI. But it will take time because the complexity is here, and actually enterprises and even people don't change that quickly. As many people say, the future is here, but it's not, equally distributed. And the same applies for AI. It's here. We all have it, but still it's amazing how much time it takes us actually to change our habits and to prove to ourselves and in reality that it really provides productiveness and value, especially at organizational levels, whether it's companies or, public organizations or governments. It will take time, but it's definitely a new wave, and it's happening, like it or not. We cannot stop it.
I think it's also a matter of what expectations we have in terms of value. Because in the beginning, it was all, first of all, it's going to take our job, so it's going to do what we do in the same way that we do it, or with the same efficiency. Everyone can now be a developer. I still find that quite funny, to be honest, because I used to be a developer not for a very long time. I cannot imagine being a developer productively, even with the AI nowadays, because that was like nearly 20 years ago. And now if I have to go back to being an active developer, AI is not going to change the fact that I am not. And it's going to be a real struggle for me to actually do something productive with it. Yes, it's great for demos, as you said, but when it comes to pushing an actual product, the gap is big. But at the same time, I'm seeing everyone, and you guys probably know this better, but I'm seeing literally every developer use Cursor or Claude in some way, or Claude through Cursor, to essentially become more productive. It's not turning people like me into developers, but it is making developers more productive, and they're using it to boost their productivity.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned something that we cannot stop AI and we cannot stop this progress. And there is this general narrative that is pushed now about AGI, how AGI is coming, and who will get AGI first, especially from companies like OpenAI. What is your opinion on the topic? Are we there? Are we close to that? Is it really possible? Or it's something imaginary that is just feeding the general hype?
I can share two perspectives on this. One of them is that probably if AGI comes, we won't know it has come, because by definition it would be a higher intelligence than us. So that's just like the philosophical side of things. And second, this is the opinion of Simon Wardley. He's doing like organizational strategy stuff, and he thinks that if it comes, it would be many dumb things working together and achieving a higher intelligence due to the interactions between the dumb things. And this, he said it first in, I think, 2015 in the context of IoT. But now he's reiterating this on the level of LLMs.
Yeah, I also think that it's really hard to define, okay, AGI is here, AGI came this Tuesday. It's not going to be like a single moment. And I think the more important question here is how we as humans are going to be able to sort of not control, but rather use and make sure that, you know, AI is not harmful, and at the end of the day, is working towards the greater good of people, which is not really easy. On one hand, historically, AI or other tools or weapons are used by humans, and humans by nature sometimes are quite violent or at least unpredictable. So the same is here. I think a more important discussion is the strategies that, for example, the US has versus China, because OpenAI and Meta and all those big guys, they are solely focused on achieving AGI. And for example, China has like the opposite strategy. They say, okay, we don't really care about AGI per se, but we care about the deep utilization and penetration of AI as we have it today in everyday life, in everything. You know, from agriculture to transportation to education. Let's put it everywhere, even if it's not AGI. And we bet that this will give us more benefits than having a super intelligent AGI that is not as widely adopted. So that's an interesting strategy, because again, it boils down to concentration of capital, to poaching of talent, to even strategies. I mean, because some of those companies are so focused on building like super intelligent models that they are sort of lagging in producing actually useful tools or applications. I mean, some of the tools that are coming from OpenAI, etc., really suck because they're so focused on getting AGI right. And in the meantime, what we have is suboptimal versus, you know, what's happening in China. I mean, we don't know the full context because it's not really easy to figure it out. But it's the opposite, and that's an interesting, thing to observe.
Most of the time when we talk about AGI, people imagine it being self-aware. I personally think we are a long way away from achieving self-awareness on one hand, but also achieving the level of intelligence that humans possess, for example, today, because that's a computational intensity that we're just not able to support right now, not from an electricity perspective, not from even if you go down to the silicon level. It is just not replicable in any way right now. So from a purely technological perspective, I don't think we're anywhere close to it. I am really concerned about what you mentioned about the many dumb things contributing to a greater whole, because if we think about, AI taking control and then, AI running the world, if it's the current state of AI tools, just, combining efforts, whether it's self-aware or not, doesn't matter, but and doing things, and we are enabling it to a greater extent. I mean, we've connected it to our browsers, we're letting it write emails on our behalf, probably people are connecting it to bank accounts to make transactions and stuff like that. So it is able to do many things. The output is always something to be verified, I think. And yeah, if it starts acting independently, we're going to be in a just a logistical mess, I think.
Yeah, and probably a final word on that, because AGI is cool, but it's not the most important thing these days. But some renowned scientists like Jan LeCun, for example, is defending the notion that the way LLMs are evolving today is just limited, because it's at the end of the day text-based. it's language model, and humans, we don't perceive the world through language only. Kids don't understand language, but they learn things. So we have 5 senses, and we perceive the world through 5 senses. So he's saying that we need to develop systems that actually replicate the way we perceive the world, and then it can get to new heights, because right now we've consumed all the text in the world pretty much, and we got here, and probably the incremental step going forward will not be as big with this approach. So who knows? That's another perspective.
This is why I think the metaverse is never going to work, because you can never replicate the completeness of experience through just audio and visual means. So I think I don't know how we do that.
What are investors' assumptions about AI right now?
So first of all, it's everywhere. I'm really struggling to see a company that's not at least utilizing AI. So you can, we're talking about 50% of investment going towards AI, but it's literally all the companies out there are using AI in one way or another, whether it's to boost their productivity internally or to actually include it as part of the product. That's a different thing. But what we are seeing it everywhere, I think it's definitely penetrated our lives in a way that not many technologies are able to do in the time frame that it's been around. So it's definitely interesting. Now we're looking at the value that's actually being delivered by the company at its core. It's not much different to assessing a company that's not AI enabled or AI driven. But the expectations in terms of productivity, speed of development, speed of growth have definitely shifted. So because we're expecting everyone to be more productive, to achieve results faster, therefore we're expecting a faster growth. And we're kind of looking at startups through that lens nowadays. So I would say higher expectations in terms of company progression against time.
Certainly that is a fact. At the same time, we try to be disciplined and again, really judge companies at the fundamental level. Do you deliver value? Do you have some kind of moat that's defensible? How are your unit economics working? Because there are like a gazillion of companies that are wrappers on the basic fundamental models, but then their unit economics are really crappy and it's totally not defensible. So we have to be really careful and not get overexcited between the fact that yes, the product might be delivering value, that is true, versus the current manual or old school kind of way of doing things, that's a fact. But then, is this something that is really defensible, or are you going to have like 50 competitors next week? And this is the danger, because sometimes you get too excited, but then this is in no way unique or deeply technologically defensible. So this is actually the challenge. It's harder now to filter through companies. So again, investors need to always remind themselves about the fundamentals, because they don't change. Differentiation, value, unit economics, this is there. Now it's just packaged or sprinkled with something new that's called AI.
And so then, from your perspective, what is the most common misconception about AI for a non-technical person?
I don't know, actually. I think from at least the people I've talked with, I think they're pretty grounded on what it can do and cannot do. Maybe a few years ago it wasn't like that, but now I'm seeing people kind of understand its limitations. And I see they're more focused on how they can utilize it better than like ask it to do outrageous things. But I think maybe still people, maybe the biggest misconception is that some people think it can replace developers still, especially like non-engineers who take Lovable, for example, and build a prototype in a few hours and like are really excited about that.
At the same time, what is sort of a little bit concerning when we look at the trends in the States, especially because they're sort of leading the way, it is a fact that, hiring is really suppressed, and companies are now proud that they're keeping their workforce flat or even decreasing while they're increasing revenues. So there is this notion, and I don't really have a clear answer. If you have a tool or technology that helps you be like 10 times more productive, are you going to produce 10 times more value, more products, or are you going to hire 10 times less people? And some data shows that, at least to some extent, companies are really hitting the brakes on hiring. So I think it will be something in the middle. We cannot naively expect that all of a sudden we will all become more productive, but everything will remain the same, because at the end of the day, companies are capital entities and they try to optimize efficiency. So there is an effect on the market. Even in Bulgaria, we see that. So while there are some positives, people just need to be aware and sort of tackle this new reality. There's also the expectation that from the get-go, at junior level, you should know much more than before, because nobody would take the time and expect that you're going to learn on the job, which creates a very sort of dangerous phenomenon that, many companies are only hiring senior people. But in 5 years, you're not going to have senior people because there were no juniors. So how do we deal with that? And I don't have an answer, but we're just seeing that, and especially early signals in the States. We all read about the quite substantial layoffs, or at least hiring freezes, while managers are trying to extract the last drop of productivity from existing teams. So this is also happening, and it's the new reality. And I think people should just learn to be more flexible and aware, and don't be sorry and cry about the good old times, because the good old times are gone. That's it. That's what I feel.
I think it's 100% hitting junior people, not just in software development, but everywhere.
Sure, everywhere.
And that is going to be a problem, and I think people will realize it soon enough to correct course, but it's certainly causing a drawback. Interesting enough, I was looking at some statistic on funding yesterday about funding rounds across, from pre-seed to Series E, essentially. And it featured, the amounts, the average round size, etc. So while the money increases, number of rounds kind of the same. And the people, interesting enough, haven't changed. So it's not like you're funding a Series C company that has half the staff of a Series C company from 3 years ago. So I think at the early stages, we're still not seeing that, but that's because startups have always been more efficient than large enterprise in terms of staffing. So we're at the VC kind of early stage, or even up to stages like Series D, we're still not seeing this massive shift in workforce. But my personal thesis on this is we're just going to have more companies. So you're not going to hire the same amount of people to do 10 times more. You're probably still going to achieve a similar result. But those people that didn't get hired will do something else.
And that's why everybody should study or, practice entrepreneurships in one way or another.
And computer science, I'm still a believer, because I understand there is a bit of an outflow from people wanting to pursue computer science degrees. Right now, at least from our academies here. But that's not going to change. You still need to understand the fundamentals, because if you don't, you're in a world of trouble. If you just generate stuff with AI and expect it to work. There's this really cool meme account it's a startup, but they have this really fun meme account on Instagram. And it's like two guys talking, and one of them is a vibe coder, and he talks about how he improved the system, blah, 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 and the other says, but I told you not to touch it. And he's like, don't worry, I told AI not to make any mistakes. and then the lights go out. And it's, it's really, really funny. It doesn't work like that. You still need to understand what you're pushing into a code base. Even though AI is probably capable right now with instructions to generate all the code that you want, you still are not going to push it into production without checking first. And to do that, you need to understand what's happening.
Yeah, I think in 2026, 2027, we'll have the first big companies that have embraced AI in the bad way and have issues in the range of Knight Capital had a while ago, big outages that cost millions, maybe billions of dollars. but it's the natural way we should learn things. Like some people have tools and companies. So yeah, and I think eventually we'll learn how to do conversational programming, like from a software engineering perspective, and people will get away from knowing the implementation details and just focus on the behavior of the system and like we'll still need technical expertise, but we'll care less and less about the code that's produced.
And what are the current bottlenecks for sustainable AI adoption?
The main bottleneck is conservatism. Like a lot of people fear it or don't believe it will generate results. And after that, I think it's what I talked about earlier, the learning how to use AI across the organization. Like maybe in 2026, we'll start learning how to do that so we can reap more and more benefits from this technology.
Yeah, I think at the moment the state of the tools that are out there is still fairly underdeveloped, and they sort of expect the person, the user, to do a lot of self-initiatives and figure things out. But obviously the time is coming where systems would use AI under the hood and guide you. I don't expect that you have to prompt a chatbot or whatever to do something, but rather a good deal of what we call monkey work will just go away, and you have a lot of proactive guidance. Okay, here is what you can do, here is the effect that you might do, what do you want to do, and you just make a decision. And this would use a lot of AI under the hood, because oftentimes people sort of confuse that AI means a chatbot with a text interface, but that's not really it. So I think we need a little more improvement in usability to make those actually adopted by people at a broader scale. And then there's just when we're talking about bigger enterprises, it's just the workflows and the regulations are just more complex, and it takes time. There's a lot of red tape, a lot of people who have to say yes, and a lot of risks. So even if there's a lot of interest, and we're seeing that, big companies are doing lots of pilots. They have dedicated teams and people who care about, digital innovation, transportation, AI adoption, etc. Those are small scale at the moment because of those issues. Then you have things which are still not really resolved, like regulations, especially in Europe. So some companies are actually afraid to adopt it because they don't know how this true regulations is going to affect them. And sometimes, you have like huge penalties. So people are concerned. Intellectual property is also a little bit of a gray area. So the stuff that AI generates, who owns it, whether it infringes some IP or not. And corporations are in general very scared because a misstep might cost them dearly, much more than the efficiency they're gaining, and they're usually later adopters. So I think SMBs, small medium-sized companies, are the ones which are more open to risk and are going to lead the way in adoption, and they're going to be the guinea pigs for the bigger guys.
Shockingly, the bigger guys are also doing steps in that direction. It's very interesting. We're just talking to this company who sells to big enterprise. You think like banks, government organizations, stuff like that. And their product can be deployed on-prem, precisely for these privacy IP reasons. A lot of the big customers prefer it to be deployed on-prem, and one of our questions was, do you not need specialized hardware for that? And they said, well, many of them actually already do. They already have GPUs on site to test. So I found that to be very interesting, that they are willing to make the investment in a GPU and to actually experiment with it. It's still not at the scale as that a smaller organization would use it in their day-to-day work, but I'm surprised that they are actually doing a lot in that respect.
You're absolutely right, and I think the reason is that in most of those companies, you actually have some very smart and capable people who are visionaries and are tasked to say, okay, where the thing is going in 5 years from now, and what do we have to do? So while big organizations are conservative, they're not stupid, and oftentimes they see the way, and they would invest in capabilities, in infrastructure or in tools. Because they know that if this delivers, the effect would be such massive on their scale that they should absolutely do it ahead of time. And you have again quite smart people doing that. It just is a cycle, and it takes some time.
Yeah, to add to the examples, I'm currently working with a really big pharmaceutical company, and basically every developer can use Quad Code to work. Of course, it's a privately hosted model, and they also embrace LLMs in the internal or external facing products they're doing in order to catch up with the market and innovate. So, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, just going back to the sustainable adoption, I think you need to be clear about the outcomes you're expecting, and definitely take cost into account. I think unit economics are critical, both for early stage companies building on top of AI and companies adopting AI solutions. So that is something to be very mindful of.
Yeah, the adoption, actually, final word for me, the adoption by big guys, and we're seeing in one company that we're co-investing with you, the adoption by big guys is important because they can then educate or even impose a certain thing on the market and really evolve the market with them, which smaller guys cannot really do. So their role is actually quite key in this respect.
And what's your take on regulations? The current AI Act had to be passed couple of times. Is it helping the companies, or it's not clear yet?
My take is that regulations in general are a good thing, because we cannot just leave the market or companies or technology to go wild. You have to try to impose some sense or some idea of the greater good. The issue is that regulation is really hard to do the right way. Even if you have the right intent, it's not really easy to do. And sometimes when you have technologies which are sort of like a black box, like AI, because you don't really know what comes out, why something that comes out. And it's really hard to regulate. So people are attacking, this regulation doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but if you don't have it, or if you don't have the intent to put some order, it's even worse. So I think we should uphold, ideas like GDPR, etc. And oftentimes, Europe is laughed at because of this. But again, I think Europe as a whole is one of the most responsible, places, because at least we're thinking about that. Versus, in the States, it's kind of like Wild West. Anyone do whatever they want. Economics drive things, and then we'll think about everything else later on. In Asia, in China, it's a different thing because you have more top-down sort of directive what's happening. So I think the idea of regulation is sound. It's just really hard to do, especially with complex technology. So I think we should be patient and just mindful that the underlying intent makes sense in some shape or form, but it will probably take a few versions to get it right, or at least practically workable.
Near impossible to regulate something you don't know what it is yet, because we still don't know exactly what shape and form this is going to take. We can set some ground rules, almost like the robot laws, to base these guiding principles. But that's why regulation is always lagging, because you need to see what is actually the thing before you can regulate it. And I just don't believe it can be efficient before it's actually happened. It's kind of always retroactive in a sense. So yeah, I don't know how you achieve that, though. This is a very difficult task.
Now we are moving towards the end, so if you want, you can ask each other some questions. If you have some, you can think about it. Or
I'm curious if you guys use any agentic AI in your day-to-day, even in work or otherwise.
I do, but still slightly, because actually and thankfully, a good deal of my work at this moment is just talk to people. And I'm glad about this, to be honest. So I try to spend less time on my desk and more time talking to people, which is great. So the need for that is not as big. But of course, we're trying to optimize some things using tools more so than stitching together things, because I just don't have time to do that. But on a team level, my colleagues are doing some great things, and I'm just, piggybacking on their work.
That's my idea with this question.
Yeah, I'm using it for software engineering. Like my current experiments are, can I learn how to work on 5 or 10 things at once by using several AI agents? It's really hard, but I believe it's a matter of skill and a matter of tooling. And maybe by the end of 2026 we'll figure out some of it. Like in 2025 we figured out how to properly use tools in software engineering, like single agents. Now that would be the focus for 2026. And it's interesting, yeah.
Would you trust AI to push code into the code base?
Yes, as long as I've created the proper verifications in place. And I don't mean LLM guardrails, I mean code that verifies the code that's going to be pushed, something deterministic that makes sure AI creates what I want it to create.
Well, I think everyone is in the matrix, and I'll give you a very simple example. There is this group of, local people who gather outside of this supermarket near where I live to, have a drink, have a chat. And to go home, I essentially go past them every single day. And the other day they were discussing something about the Sofia municipality and stuff like that. And one of them pulled out his phone and he was like, see, ChatGPT says that the mayor's salary is X and it changed on that date and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, this is mind-blowing. So it's being used at a very, very basic everyday level by literally everyone and by people you wouldn't expect to rely on the AI for stuff. So I think it's all pervasive. It's so interesting because we've seen other things like, the metaverse, blockchain, stuff like that, which is not necessarily, has not necessarily penetrated everyday life to the extent that AI has. So from that perspective, it's really fascinating. I think, so first of all, in terms of using AI to find and assess opportunities, by all means, we're using that on an everyday basis ourselves as professionals. I'm sure most people are in the bubble, as you said. But when it comes down to people with who want to create something because they have a great idea, by all means, go ahead and do it. Let's see what happens. I personally am a little bit more conservative, so I would like to see something has happened. I want to see at least a demo. I want to see that somebody is using that demo or something like that. And that's a personal preference. I wouldn't speak about the VC space in general. We are seeing, and including us as an investor, we are backing ideas at the idea stage before product has any footing yet. But I am personally a little bit more conservative, and I like to see that people have done a little bit of work. And whether they've done it with AI or not, it doesn't really matter. I'm very basic in that sense that I want to see the outcome, and it's like, oh, you did it with AI, great. I don't care that much.
I think I would comment on two fronts here. On one hand, I think the promise of AI is that it would democratize knowledge, and it would democratize ability in a good way. For example, if the three of us with no knowledge of a certain domain have an idea and passion about it, we can ask ChatGPT what to do. For example, how to run a marketing campaign, So you get the knowledge. Then potentially we get the tools to do that much easier than before, where you need, a specialized performance marketer or whatever. So that will probably happen. It will be the birth of, like Raya said earlier, much more smaller companies that would do well. Whether those are going to be like VC profile companies, probably not, because with VC we have very short timelines for those companies to grow really big. So building sort of a lifestyle business is not for us. And we don't have time for people to learn on the job. They need to come and really, in the matter of 2, 3, 5 years, grow 100x. That's the goal. Very few do in this scale, but this is what we are after. Still, people who might try once or twice to do something as a lifestyle business could then know enough to actually start a VC backable business. So it's all good in the end of the day. And I think the overall notion that knowledge these days is in our pocket and we have no excuse for not knowing something is there. And then the tools are getting better so that without deep domain knowledge in certain aspects, you can actually achieve a lot of things as those tools become even more useful. So I think this technology is proliferating everywhere and potentially, and it's going to affect everything, I think. Also, when robots really come into the picture, because right now we still don't see them on the streets, that would affect the so-called blue-collar jobs as well, and the way people do physical things as well. So this is also coming. And again, we cannot stop it. We should not panic. Just embrace it and adapt to this new reality because it's here, that's it.
Like if it's a startup whose main product is software, I wouldn't trust the founders if they're not non-technical to have something stable built. Maybe not in the next 5-10 years at least.
Great. Thank you very much for this conversation.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
The Recursive Roundtable. 3 voices, 1 idea to decode the future.